So in Dubai, and like I say, I've lived here for 20 years. The one thing difficulty I haven't faced more than any other place I've lived or visited is being a woman. It's actually a very female friendly place for the business world, and there's also a great misperception. So the local Emirati women, they have a choice. Some of them are very entrepreneurial in amongst the government ministers and amongst some of the leaders of society here are definitely women. And most of the royal families across the seven emirates will have women holding important roles. So there's this perception that possibly women have a harder time here, but actually for me, it's been no harder than working as a woman in, say, Ghana.
Hello everybody, you're welcome to Just for Women Africa, and my name is Olalekan Amusa, the founder of Just for Women Africa. And today we're on a Zoom interview all the way from the United Emirates, Dubai specifically, and we have with us Nana Serwa Mancell, who is the CEO and founder of Veghana, a restaurant she owns in Dubai. She will tell us why she started a restaurant in Dubai, her challenges and her plans for the future. Yeah, welcome to the Just for Women Africa, Nana.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome, Nana. Okay, Nana, actually the first question everybody will be asking is, how did you end up starting up a restaurant in Dubai, and why Dubai?
So this is my 20th year in Dubai. So I've actually lived here for a big chunk of my career, and my career has been in public affairs, communications, marketing, policy work, that sort of thing. And I worked in a kind of a more typical type of corporate job. And during COVID, I lost my job. I worked for the media of a major event that involved hundreds of people flying in. So I knew that my job was gone and it was time to think of what I wanted to do. And all our lives, you're told, do what you love. And what I've always loved is cooking and talking about food and serving people. But for some, I come from the sort of typical African family that, lawyer, doctor, accountant, that sort of thing. So I studied law, though I didn't become a lawyer, that's what I studied. And I'd never for a minute before this thought that I would ever take cooking seriously. I just didn't see it as something, it just didn't even cross my mind. And during COVID, I started cooking for people more and more, just for something to do and developing recipes and that sort of thing. And I was asked to do a vegan dinner. And before then, when I cooked, I didn't necessarily cook African food. But I noticed that whenever I had to cook for my vegetarian or vegan friends, the only interesting things that I could think to cook them would always be West African dishes. The kind of European food that I knew how to cook always seemed so limiting and tasteless for vegetarian and vegan food. So at this stage, I'm not vegan. I wasn't vegan or vegetarian myself. So I started the business during COVID for cooking for friends that didn't eat meat. I wasn't a vegan at all myself, but I started it purely because I thought this could be a good niche for West African, to get myself well known as for West African food. But as I started the business, as I researched the figures of the industry I was in, as you look into the background, then I eventually became vegan myself, which I now have been for about 2 years. But I always say that I've seen both sides, I've had a lifelong of not being vegan and only 2 years of being vegan. So when people say, I can't do it because I love meat too much, I said, well, everybody does when they make that decision.
Okay.
So yeah, and Dubai is very cosmopolitan, and because I've worked in marketing, I understood how to build a brand here. But what I didn't know anything about was the food industry, absolutely nothing. So I'm still learning.
Okay, all right, that's great to hear. So how long have you been operating Veghana for?
So Veghana it's about to go into our second year, and So whilst we're still struggling in terms of business turnover, therefore, this time, that my time and my talents and, not making a huge profit now would be the equivalent of starting a business with capital. So I have to understand that it's going to take some time. But where we have done spectacularly well is getting well known in Dubai. And Veghana this next month will receive an award for the most innovative F&B business in the Middle East. And it's one of those awards that I didn't apply for, you don't pay for, they chose our little business. So, accolades like that really inspire me and make me believe in the rightness of what I'm doing.
Okay. Congratulations on the award. It shows that you're on the right path and you're doing something really great.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Nana. 2 years in the business, what has been some of your challenges with actually growing a brand like Veghana in the Emirates? What kind of things do you have to deal with, especially being a woman?
So in Dubai, and like I say, I've lived here for 20 years. The one thing I haven't faced more than any other place I've lived or visited is being a woman. It's actually a very female-friendly place for the business world, and there's also a great misperception. So the local Emirati women, they have a choice. Some of them are very entrepreneurial in amongst the government ministers and amongst the some of the leaders of society here are definitely women. And most of the royal families across the 7 Emirates will have women holding important roles. So there's this perception that possibly women have a harder time here, but actually for me, it's been no harder than working as a woman in, say, Ghana.
Okay. All right. So presently, you've been running Veghana for 2 years, and you seem to be doing very, very well because I checked out your profile on the internet. And so when it comes to food, and since you're dealing with West African food, how do you get to import the foods in, or are they grown in Dubai?
So because I've become increasingly aware of the sustainability impact of anything I do, I try and source as much as I can locally. And actually at the moment, there's only 2 things that don't happen easily locally. When I talk about food and recipes online to a possibly international audience, I always say our people travel, our people being, say, Ghanaians and Nigerians. I think in nearly every major city in the world, you will find Ghanaian and Nigerian food businesses. They are there. So I'm in a way sourcing my food from these small businesses, which also makes me happy because I'm supporting small local businesses and not leaving so this is food that's already imported in Dubai, not because of me. Surprisingly, UAE grows a lot of its own vegetables, more than people would think. So I would say I'm able to at least 70 to 80% of my menu is organic food here, bought straight from the farmers, and it's not hard. And then things that are certain things, because of also the closeness to, say, India and Sri Lanka, who eat some of the same things as us in West Africa. So plantains, for instance, are easily available here. A variety of garden eggs that works in our West African dishes is easily available here. So the only product that I've had to find a way of importing in that I'm fanatical about is fonio. And also, it's not always easy for me to get bambara beans. But other than that, everything is here anyway.
Okay, that's nice to know. Nice to know that you can get access to foods easily in Dubai. That's really, really nice. I had no idea that Dubai grows their own vegetables, but what they import in. So that's actually really good to hear. Okay, so now that that is covered out, so you know that you can get your raw materials in. What is it like actually getting staff to work with you at your organization?
So everything is a challenge. For me, the biggest challenge is never having worked in a commercial kitchen before. So I started my business off quite almost in la la land, not realizing all the health and safety, and rightly so that they are there. health and safety rules and things you have to know about food temperatures and things that we do at home, which, for instance, if we're cooking at an event here, we can't leave the rice out for more than 2 hours. So learning to operate in a commercial kitchen was possibly the biggest challenge. In terms of staff recruitment, getting to Dubai, at least till now, is not the same as getting to Europe. So I've been able to come to Ghana, and I'm Fanti, I come from Cape Coast, and find a network of people who then find me staff. So I have a small staff of 3 Ghanaians, 2 of them who grew up cooking on the streets in Ghana, and street food is a lot of what I adapt. So they are always teaching me new things and surprising me with them. I thought I knew a lot about our Ghanaian food, and surprising me also with the things they did when they were growing up. So, for instance, I never knew how to work with, say, tiger nuts. So my girls would say, "Oh, Mommy, we can make you the tiger nut drink, a tiger nut pudding," that sort of thing. So for staff, it's not as hard here. So here, the challenge is finding the funds to set up a company. But once you do that, you can easily get anybody you want to come to work here, and the visas isn't the challenge. You just have to cover the fee financially.
So I was asking, so our viewers who are watching and who love Veghana, what types of foods do you actually sell or make at a Veghana restaurant?
So when I started, I would sit and think up all these West African things that I might make my own way or do this to that. But the reality of working in a kitchen where you don't know your orders because it's a new business, and I can't have a very, very big menu, meant I had to be really disciplined about what I put in my menu. So this led to an interest in what is generic West African food. And in West Africa, because of our colonial history, this isn't hard. So ethnically, we're so different, Nigeria, Ghana, whatever. But there's certain dishes that are generic to West Africa. They might have a different name, but these are the things in West Africa we eat. So I try to stick to those, but I'm obviously cooking them with a Ghanaian accent, because me and my staff are West African. And for sure, for instance, we're in our first 2 years now, and rather than focusing on being fancy with our menu, I stuck to what I know. So jollof rice would be a big favorite. And so for our jollof rice, we call it jollof rice feast. So we pack it with interesting things. And the problem, I think, with people giving up meat is that anybody cooking for them needs to replace that with layers of flavor and texture. And actually, I think a lot of the reason that we hold on to eating meat is because we're not giving enough layer and texture. And particularly, if you're a meat eater who's not West African, and you come to West Africa and you see how we cook meat, it's almost pointless that it's there. It's just matter. Most of us in West Africa, when we're cooking meat for a soup or stew, we boil it until it's hard and colorless, and then we fry it, and then it goes into the dish that has been developed plant-based. And because I believe, and I know that whilst we were not necessarily vegan in West Africa, we were plant-based who ate meat when we could find it. So our dishes are standalone. So my next ambition, now that I'm set, is to learn more about the other countries and add that to my menu. So I'm very fascinated by Nigeria and the full range of green vegetables and green plants that are used in various Nigerian soups and stews that Ghanaians don't know about. That is much. Nigerians have a lot to teach the world. So my next thing is to learn that kind of dish by dish, and adapt it for a more generic taste, and make it. How can I make? So in Nigeria they might put salt fish in a lot of dishes, like in Ghana we do. So how to make the dish still interesting, whilst it sticks to its plant-based authenticity. So yeah, I'm working with a good Nigerian friend of mine who's very similar to me, who's had a lifelong interest in our West African foods, and she's teaching me about the Nigerian dishes. So hopefully during this year I'll be able to introduce more of that, and then I will hopefully move more along French West Africa and say chicken yassa, which is the Senegalese dish, how I can adapt that and make a vegan version.
Okay, all right. My next question was actually going to be, apart from the Ghanaian dishes, do you plan on adding other West African foods to it? But I think it seems like you've answered that question already. All right, so we brings me to my next question. 2 years in the business, what have you learned so far as a CEO, as a founder of Veghana, running your own business?
I was saying what I've learned, the thing I've learned most is how much I didn't know. So I didn't know that, for instance, there's such a community as Afro-vegan chefs.
Okay.
For instance, there's a lady with a big following in Canada who I learned a lot from, who is cooking with Efia, and she's a dedicated vegan who also sticks very, very authentically to her traditional African foods. So I didn't know that so it's in no way a kind of organization or even thing. You get to realize that it's very much taken or has a perception that it's something that white people do that should be about quinoa and pumpkin and that sort of thing. So what I've learned is that actually, say in America, if you're a black person, you're more likely to be a vegan than if you're a white person. Okay. And I think you're 8% more likely to be vegan if you're a black person. And this is to do with some of the civil rights movements, and also say the Rastafarian movements who don't eat meat. And it's just learning what I don't know. What I thought, I started veganism as a business decision, and then I became it myself. So then once you're doing it for something that becomes quite ethical, what I've learned is my responsibility to things like the soil in Africa, to make sure I'm sourcing things that are from areas where it's being responsibly farmed. And all those things are the things that I'm still learning, as I go along.
All right, so I was about to round up the interview. What's your advice to women all over Africa and the rest of the world who want to start up their own businesses, but they feel that it's a man's world? They feel that they don't have the finances to start. They feel they get harassed by men sexually. What's your advice to them, basically?
Soldier on, carry on, keep passionate and do it. I always say, though I still have a struggle financially, if I had started my business with money, what would have happened is I would have wasted it. I wouldn't have known which avenues are a success or a failure. And everything I thought mattered, I would have wasted. So for instance, I had to learn how to build my website myself, because I didn't have the funds for somebody to do this for me. And through that, I can go and find my own statistics, who has come to the site, from where. And I did this with no background in website building at all, but these days, you have the tools for that. So finance is only part of it, but you start small, and don't forget the power of word by mouth. So again, I never had a marketing budget, but just word by mouth and getting yourself out there. And I think I'm West African, so it's very hard to speak for other types of Africans, but I can generally say Ghanaian and Nigerian women generally have a kind of confidence that we've had our whole life, how to deal with obnoxious men. And we do that with grace and style, but fiercely. So don't forget to stick with that, and all the wisdoms that our mothers and grandmothers taught us is very important to me. Visualization, believing in what you're doing, the power of prayer. These things that initially I wouldn't have thought are important to a business, I find are actually very key. And sometimes it's not all about the profit. I think if you set a 5-year goal, and even if for the first 5 years you're not going to make money, but you have a goal, go for it and do it with passion. In the same way we bring up our children. I mean, I have 3 kids, and Veghana very much feels like one of my children that's stuck in a difficult baby stage.
I do agree with you. I mean, go with your passion, and you definitely succeed. And we should not start with money. We all start with money. I mean, basically would squander the money on useless things in the business. Okay, so as we bring the interview to a close, could you give out your contact details for people who will be visiting Dubai, who want to have a feel of vegan food or West African food and don't know where to go to?
Okay, so we actually deliver across the UAE, so including Abu Dhabi and Sharjah and of course Dubai. And our website is veghana.life. So it's VEGHANA.life, and that's where you can order the food from. And I'm very accessible on Instagram. I'm still at the stage where I'm very involved in the kitchen and in my communications myself. So on my website, because I live in Dubai and there's not a lot of West Africans who are willing to pay, my prices have to be what they are because the restaurant business is so expensive. So because they're not of West Africans who can pay for what I eat, I understand that my market isn't necessarily West Africans. So I might not have fufu or banku or a swallow on the menu. But if somebody comes to me and says, I'm very interested in trying these things, we make it for them.
Okay, that's nice to know. So if anybody walks into Dubai and says they want a swallow or they want a banku, a fufu, a pounded yam, you can always sell them off them.
On our website, but because we actually only want the people who know it to ask for it. So I don't want somebody who has never tried fufu to look at a pretty picture on it on my website and get it and just go, "What's this? I can't eat it."
I totally agree with you. It's part of the marketing plan. I understand you. All right, Nana, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you being on Just Women Africa. We look forward to interviewing again in future, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this interview.
You're welcome. And to our viewers who are watching, don't forget to click subscribe, tell a friend who knows a friend about Just Women Africa. And from Nana and I, it's been bye.